What's up everyone, Morey Croson here, and today we're going to be going over how to run a faster 40 based on your height, and we're going to start the video right now. This is the newest edition of the Performance Lab.
Reach your individual goals. You don't want to just talk about straight line speed. We also want to talk about your ability to be quick. We break down your video. Let's make you into the quarterback I know you can become.
All right, so this is something that we've obviously been working to be able to figure out for a while now when it comes to really getting a specific number for what it is that we should be doing when it comes to running the 40. And really, I just spent like the last 2.5 hours really going deep into creating some type of formula to at least help you guys out in being able to at least run a faster 40. I think this can apply to a faster 60. I also think this can also apply to the 100 meter as well. But I know that most people watching this are going to be looking specifically at the 40, and that's what most of the detail is going to be on here today. So what I did here is I just looked at Calvin Johnson, and he ran a 4.35. And was able to run that in 17.5 steps. So, really what I'm going to go through is running a 4.55, okay? And from here, we can continue to scale it up. You can scale it down based off of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and we'll be able to go more in depth into that as we go. So if you want to go to 4.7 or 4.8, I'm going to give you a formula to be able to help you in being able to break it all down to make it so you have some attainable goals to be able to reach for. So as always, as we're getting into the video here, if you like the information, go ahead and click that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, you can leave those down below. As I've been saying, we're going to continue to just kill you guys with some of the sickest, most helpful content that you could possibly imagine. And we're going to start with another great video for how to help you out with the 40. So, again, we went into, I'm going to go into the different heights. So, I wanted to at least create a number system, right? A baseline. You have to at least draw a line in the sand somewhere. And so what I did here is, first 20 steps he took, Calvin Johnson took 10 steps and was able to cover for the first 20, he took 10 steps, for the last 27.5. Then, so I said for if you're 6'4", you should be able to take about 18 steps. Again, these are all numbers that could vary, slightly, but want to be around here, right? Don't want to be a lot more than this. So then first 24, if you're 6'4", 10.5, stay with that 7.5 number on the last 20. 6'3", we stayed with 10.5 for the first 20, and then went to 8 for the last 20. Again, it could be, 11 on the, first 20, and then 7.5 still on, that last 20. 6'2", 11, and then 8. 6'1", 11.5, and then 8. And then for 6 foot, 12, and then 8. 5'11", I went 20.2, right? So you guys kind of get the gist, 21, 21.5. So you guys could always go back and see, what these numbers are. Okay, so now we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty of the numbers, because I know some of you guys are watching this saying, okay, well, how did he come up with some of these numbers here? So 0.40 for the first 10, we got 0.41 for 10 to 20, or 0.41 to 0.55, right? 0.40 to 0.51 for the first 10, and 0.41 to 0.50 for the last 20. And essentially what happens here is you get a little bit more time depending on your height, right? You get a little bit less time with, again, depending on your height. So the shorter you are, you're more here. The taller you are, you're more here. But the shorter you are, the less distance you have to cover. The taller you are, the more distance you have to cover. So, what we did is we just said, okay, if we're going to try to run this, first 20 and 2.65, which, again, we're going to go and break that down. So, when watching this here, Calvin Johnson ran the first 20 in 2.63, which means that, and he ran 4.35, so that means he ran 1.72 in that second 20, which is about 23.78 miles per hour. I'm going to get more in depth into the miles per hour, and just to give you an idea, so 2.65 is obviously still a really good time, but you could run a 2.65 and then not have to run 1.72, run closer to 1.90, which a 1.90 is 23.3 miles per hour. I want to say that's actually 1.90 is 21. Right, it's only 21 miles an hour, so it's not, you don't have to run as fast essentially in order to run a 4.5. Okay, and so the first 10, what the number or what the way of looking at it essentially is so we have 155. We're going to go 7 steps, right? This is going to be somebody closer to 6 foot, my height, and then 6 steps for Calvin Johnson, being 6'5". And just because you're 6 foot doesn't mean you have to take 7 steps. Just because you're 6'5" doesn't mean you have to take 6 steps. Again, there's a lot of variability from one to the other, but again, this just makes it so now you can at least get some type of framework for what are we shooting for. So essentially what we do is we just take the number 1.55 that we're trying to get to, and we multiply it by 2, right? We have 2 legs, so we get 3.1, and then we just divide that 3.1 by the number of steps that we're taking, and now we can get an idea of how much time we want to be having within our cycles. Okay, so we'll do the same thing here, 3.1 divided by 6. Okay, so now we can see that, for this is 516. Okay, we can round that up, round that down. So on average, what we want to be able to do is take from the time our foot hits the ground, right, that foot contact time. So a lot of times the first foot is going to be about 0.17, right? So if my first step is 0.17, then my second step needs to be, my foot contact is 0.17. The amount of time that I have to be able to get the foot back down should be about 2.7 in order to get in that 0.44 range, right? And then my second step's typically about 0.14 in terms of the amount of time spent on the ground, which would mean that this one would want to be time off the ground 0.30, right? Second step around the same thing. Okay, then the goal is for that fourth step to be 0.12, which would make it so now, so now you can get an idea of where I should be with my steps, okay, and create a system of being able to at least understand, this is not great math there, how to be able to get to that 155. Now, with that being said, if you end up going and spending a little bit more time on the ground, let's say, know how much you need to, how much faster you have to be able to cycle with your legs. Now, for somebody that's taller, so now you only have 6 steps, you have to be able to cover a lot more distance, right? So you have more time. So if you have, let's say 1.4 time on the ground, you have a little bit more time to create that reach within that 0.37 seconds, okay? And also, if, let's say, you miss on a step, so this one's 0.17, okay, and we still have the 3.0 here, so this one would be, 0.47, let's say, we could always make up for that with, some steps that end up being a little bit shorter, potentially at the end, okay? So we have this one that would be, maybe 3.2, right? Another one that could be, 3.2. Okay, so now we can make up for, some of those faulty steps at the beginning. Again, this wants to just give us an understanding of where should we be at. So first 10, around 0.44, second 10, about 0.51, and this is going to be if you're trying to take the, so for me, I would be closer to trying to get 12 steps. So now for the second 20, and then this is going to end up being another 10, right? But it's going to be, we want to do the same thing with the time. So 265. So I already got this. So now I'm going to go 110 by 2, 10 to 20 in 5 steps. Okay, and so now I'm going to multiply that by 2. So that's going to be another 0.44. Okay, and then what we'll do for this one is going to be, what did we say for this here? 12.5, right? So we got, let's say, we're going to let them go with 5.5 steps. So now we're going to go with that same thing, 12.2, and divide that by 5.5, and now we're going to get 0.4, right? So now in order to get that same 10 yards in 5 steps, right, I need to be spending 0.44 seconds on the ground in comparison to, somebody that's maybe a little bit shorter has to be spending, 0.40 when the foot hits the ground through that entire transition, okay? So that's going to be really looking at that first, that's going to be really looking at the first 10, first 20, again, establishing some numbers there. Now, let's establish some top speed variables, okay? Because now, now that you know that, now you can set your times accordingly, right? You don't necessarily need to run 110 in that second 20 or, from 10 to 20. You could definitely run 115, okay, and still be able to accomplish running a 450, right? Because 22 miles an hour is definitely a accomplishable thing. Not that that's easy, but that is definitely something that you can accomplish. And so, if you got a, let's say, 155, which is, I mean, that's fast in the first 10, and then 115 here, okay, so now you're at a 170, and then if you got that last, 270, and then if you ran that last 20 in 1.8, okay, that would be a 250 flat, 450 flat. A lot of numbers. It's late here. I'm doing I've been working on this for, like I said, for the last 2.5 hours. It's 1 a.m. now. I just started working on it, and I was like, okay, I need to make this video now that I kind of have a formula that I think makes sense. So yeah, being able to run the 22 miles an hour, right, is being able to run 1.8, which is essentially 0.9 seconds per 10. Okay, so if I'm going to be able to run 0.9 seconds, how do I actually achieve that? Well, let's do the math. So first, we want to be able to go 0.9, multiply that by 2. Okay, so now we got 1.80. Okay, now I want to be able to divide that by, typically, you're going to be taking about 4 steps, okay, depending on what it is. Okay, so here it's 7.5 if you're taller, right? A lot of them I put for 8. So for me, I'm just going to go with the 8. Okay, so we got 1.8 divided by 4. So that's going to be 0.45, okay, in terms of how much time I want to be spending on the ground, how much, and off the ground, right? So my entire kind of leg cycle and the distance per step, right? So essentially, I wrote it all out right here. If I'm going to be running 3.5 steps for 10 yards for a time of 175, okay, which would be a little bit slower than we said that Calvin Johnson ran 172. So 175 is pretty fast. Right, 23 miles an hour. That's definitely nothing to joke about. But the 175, that means each 10 is 0.50. Okay, and with the foot contact and the turnover, and the distance per step is 2.7. Right, it'd probably be closer to 2.75. Okay, to make it so then but somewhere within that kind of range to make it so then you could get to 10.5 steps. Or 10.5 yards, right? Because this is going to end up being, 3.5 steps or maybe even closer to 11 yards. It doesn't really matter there in terms of, how much distance it's going to take you to get 4 steps, right? 3.5 steps, you want that to happen in that 10-yard mark, right? But we're going to be kind of looking at it like, 0.5 times 4, okay? But that 4th step doesn't all the way come down because we're only looking at the 0.35. Okay, so that makes it so now it's 175 with the seconds, because if it was 0.5, then that would be 2.0 seconds, right? But since it's only 3.5, we can cut a little bit of that time off because, we're going through that cycle. Okay, but now if you're shorter, you don't have that luxury. Okay, so now, a lot of times with shorter guys, 190 is a solid time. Okay, that means we're from foot contact to turnover, it's 0.47 seconds. Definitely something that is very, very doable, and getting 2.5 yards per step. Now this is a little bit harder, right? 2.5 yards per step, averaging 5 yards per step is not a very, very easy thing, especially for, being 6 foot. I know that, I can't do that. I typically run the 40 in about 20.5 steps, okay? That's why I don't run a 4.5. Okay, because I'd have to take that extra time. Okay, that extra 0.5, it adds an extra about 0.2 on there. Potentially, could be it fluctuates, right? It could be 4.6, it could be 4.7, somewhere in there. But now we're going to go for if I'm going to go 4.5 steps, so again, shorter. Okay, but beat the time, right? So 190 was this one. So I'm a shorter person, but running a faster time has to have a time spent on the ground and turnover speed of 0.41, moving those legs very quickly, but only has to get 2.2 yards per step. So it doesn't have to carry a lot of distance, right? But it has to be very quick. And this is possible. This is what, when I was going in looking at Tyson Gay, that's what he was running. He was about 0.30 with the, his turnover speed, and he was about 0.11, 0.10 on his foot contact. Right, when he ran the 969, right, and he's only 5'10", so he was probably able to cover a lot more distance per step because he's 5'10", a little bit taller. But it gives you an idea that it is a possible thing to have your legs turning over that quickly where you could actually make something like this happen. So, now that you have at least a framework, okay, you can kind of work that into what is the most important thing for you to be able to work on, whether it is your times, okay, so now you have to be able to look and see, okay, how good is your 10, right? How good is your first 10? Are you running a 1.55 in your first 10? Okay, and again, that's going to be something that if the taller guys, it's going to be more challenging, right? That's okay if you have a little bit longer time with your first 10, 158, 160, whatever the case may be. And then, from there, you can kind of scale up and scale down what are some of these other numbers that we want to be able to potentially achieve. I will say that, one of the things I've been talking about a lot is the difference between some of these numbers is not very much in terms of how much your top speed is, right? So, 180, 22.7, right? 175, 23.3. Okay? So there's not, if you get all the way up to being able to run this 175 and be able to make that a consistent thing, that shaves off an extra 0.05 within your last 20, right? Which makes it so now you don't have to have as good of a start. Okay? You can have a 160, start. I mean, typically people that are going to be able to get up to that type of speed are not going to be able to, have a really slow start, right? Just because they're very explosive overall athletes. But again, it gives you an idea of where you're at. So 160, maybe 110, because some of you guys are going to be, 485, right? 49, okay? And you're going to have to figure out how to wear it down, okay? And this gives you an idea from a number perspective. I love to make the overall concept be about business because I'm in business as well. So I'm in speed, I'm in business. There are two things that very much overlap in a lot of ways. And if we're going to go and say, okay, we need to make more money, right? Well, making more money is different from you than it is to, or from me than it is to you, than it is to, somebody that has a household of 8 or 10 or 2. Everybody's going to have a different way of spending their money, utilize their money. So, somebody can make $15,000 in a month and have $20,000 of expenses, right? And so they're losing $5,000. Right? And then there's also somebody that could be making $15,000 a month and only have $5,000 of expenses, right? So they're making $10,000 a month. Okay? So, in order for us to then say, I need to make more money, first we have to be able to understand where is the money coming from, right? And how much money are we currently making? We have to understand, these basic concepts in order to say how can we improve. And so if we're looking at our overall budget and we're down 5,000, right? Maybe we have to say in order to make more money, we have to spend less, right? Or if we're making 10,000, right? If we're up 10,000, then maybe we say, well, let's start using some of the resources that we have to be able to reinvest into making more money, right? Same type of thing with running. So if we have, some great times, 155, let's say, is great 10, okay? But then in the 20, we're running, 2, okay? Let's take some of the resources that we have. We're running 155 is really good. Let's spend more of our resources on 2.2 and make it so we can run a faster last 20. Okay, and probably what ends up happening if you're running at 155, that means you're doing a lot more agility, acceleration type of work, right? You're more built for that. Let's build yourself for more 220, right? But if you're running 5.3, okay, then you're losing money, right? And then that just means we have to get an idea of where are we at. Are we at 4.9? Are we at 4.7? Are we at 4.5? So then we can see what it is that we need to be able to work on. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense to you guys. I know I went into a lot of depth there and to a bunch of different things. I, could potentially be overthinking this whole thing, right? But that's just the way that I am. I'm somebody that is going to think a lot about how can I provide value for you? How could I provide value for myself, right? How can I make it so I can run faster? I want to be able to run sub 4.5, so I need to be able to understand this, but I also want to be able to connect with you guys and make it so you guys can actually understand what it's going to take you to be able to achieve your dreams, achieve your goals, achieve your aspirations, and it's not going to, happen itself, right? And I think the more information I can give you and the more willingness that you have to kind of lean in to your potential difficulties, deficiencies, areas of improvement, and seek to then better understand it and understand how to get over it, then the more you're going to be able to learn about yourself, the more you're going to build up the habits that are necessary to be able to succeed at much more than just football or running faster or some of the things that come from taking a commitment towards actually achieving a specific goal, right? A lot of things end up happening when you decide you're going to commit to a program, commit to something, commit to aspiring to achieve something that is bigger than you or is going to challenge you in ways that you have not been challenged before. And that's something that obviously I try to do for myself. And I also want to try to set up for you because it's helped me in being able to lean into those types of situations, lean into those types of programs, right? I tell people all the time that I'm talking to about the programs, like the best thing you could do is invest in yourself, right? Period. The best thing you can do, whether it's you buy my program, whether it's you buy a book, whether it's buy a course, whether it's you buy training in your own hometown, invest in yourself, right? Invest in your own learning, invest in your abilities to be able to grow and to achieve and get uncomfortable, right? It's not only about trying to hoard all the money that you can have. It's a lot of times about building great relationships. It's about being able to open up doors for other people, right? It's about helping others around you succeed. And the more that you could help others accomplish what it is that they're trying to do, then the more you're going to be able to actually get on the path to achieve the things that you want to be able to achieve. So again, guys, thanks for watching the videos. Like, subscribe, check out some of the other things that we have. Looking forward to being able to continue to help you out, and talk to you soon.